Yeah, as Vishal said, we are now moving into the management and orchestration part of the cloud infrastructure track. There's a lot of market opportunities here, a lot of customer requirements, and a number of new technologies and entrepreneurial avenues for all of you. So to start the two panels, let me introduce Dinesh Sirangpatna, who is from IDC, and he will moderate the first panel. Dinesh.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a tough act to follow BV Jagdish and Praveen Akiraju, but we'll try to do our best. So just to set the stage, these days everything is a service. And it's software as a service, and it's IT as a service. So whether it's storage as a service, desktop as a service. But when we look at the journey there, it's easy to generalize the steps along the continuum. So the first step along the continuum was you had physical servers and physical networks. Then we had the advent of virtualization, which really helped a lot of things and reduced the server sprawl. Today we are, I would say, and this is my personal opinion, but today we are at the stage where we are at stage 3, where we have this cloud orchestration, automation, and provision. And tomorrow, these are the building blocks for having business drive IT. And the future looks very bright in the sense that then these building blocks can be used to set up IT as a service, and where you have the truly federated data center that brings in the best of both public and private clouds. At this stage, I would like to invite the panelists, Krishna Subramaniam, to dive into some questions that the entrepreneurs ask and even the big companies ask is, everybody knows IT budgets are flat or shrinking. IT is being asked to do more with less. So the question that comes up is orchestration high on the CIO roadmap for investment? And is there a business case actually at this point in time to justify orchestration solutions? And actually, the more interesting question is, should firms actually target certain stacks for easy wins? Would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Yeah, if you look at CIO trends, if you look at the top 10 spending priorities, cloud is usually number 3 or number 4, along with data center infrastructure transformation. So definitely companies are investing in cloud and cloud orchestration technologies. I think to the question of, is there some low-hanging fruit where you can see easier benefits? That's absolutely the case. With all the customers that we work with, we see that there are certain workloads that are much better suited for the cloud than others. And also, there are certain workloads that are better suited for an elastic public cloud and certain workloads that are better suited for an on-premise private cloud. And so, workloads like development and test, web-scale workloads, things around gaming and media, any media type of applications, analytics and big data are all applications that are very well suited for cloud solutions.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that so Jive Software, I'm going to have more of the consumer side of it in terms of we deliver our service through the cloud. And as we look to build our SaaS platform, we're constantly looking for ways that we can build and deploy SaaS platform that can scale 10x, 100x, 1000x with a much more linear staffing profile, right? So how do we scale 100x with maybe a marginal increase in staff? And so orchestration is really the only way you can do that at scale. And for us, that's one of the key areas of investment that we've made. We started off actually building it ourselves, and we're now at a point where as we re-architect our platform, our SaaS platform, orchestration is actually probably one of the top 2 priorities along with actual application scalability and reliability. So it's absolutely critical for us, and we're looking for orchestration tools and orchestration suites really that interface with kind of the top tier and the common platforms, OpenStack, VMware, some of those tools, and really bring those tools together into kind of a common orchestration suite.
Alok, would you like to add something?
Sure, absolutely. And before that, I think it's always difficult to go after your ex-boss and a panel of CIOs when they've just gone through, so talk about their challenges. But absolutely. So I think if you look at the orchestration itself, there are a couple of other things which are happening in parallel. I mean, it's not just about how do I orchestrate all my workloads, et cetera. But as a CIO, I'm also challenged with the applicization. everybody in my organization is used to apps on their iPhones, et cetera, and when they come back to work, they have an expectation that not only I need something which is going to offer me a similar user experience, something which is going to continually change, offering me an enhanced experience as I see that happening outside. So as a CIO, I am challenged with offering a seamless and consistent user experience across my variety of workloads, which vary from my legacy systems to everything on cloud. Now, orchestration absolutely is an answer, but is it right for me? I think there are different ways to look at it. If you're a large enterprise, you have thousands of applications, and you're looking to consistently offer seamless experience and convergence, absolutely. If you are a systems integrator who are offering managed services, yes. If you are an outsourcer, because you're going to be doing that for your customers across a multi-cloud environment, definitely. Now, do I have a ROI as a smaller enterprise? I think we need to stay tuned, but definitely something to look forward to. I think that's how I would submit.
Thank you. Since we've established that there is money on the table, let's zoom in into the more interesting aspect, which is the markets and customers. If I was an entrepreneur, where are the biggest pain points? Are there any white spaces for entrepreneur firms? Is it a winner-take-all market, and has the market already been captured? And when we discuss about the customer, who is actually asking those automated tools? Is it the business user? Is it the IT user? Are there any segments of the market that are more ripe at this time? Is it the medium enterprises? Is it the large enterprises? Any thoughts?
There were a lot of questions there. So I'll try and answer some of them, and my fellow panelists can answer others. First, I wanted to actually go on a point that you made. A lot of people think that the cloud should be about cost savings because they're used to a cost savings-based argument for server virtualization. And so they want the same for cloud. And at least in my experience, what I've seen with all the customers we've worked with is the cloud is less about cost savings and more about agility. Customers that are successful with cloud solutions are those that leverage it to do something new that they couldn't do before and to enable new ways of working that they weren't able to enable before. And with that as a backdrop, I'd say, the customers and segments where we see the greatest success are the segments that take that approach, whether it's government and education institutions where there's one IT department that serves as an internal service provider to other departments, or media web scale companies developing new kinds of applications like Disney Interactive, running Disney Infinity and Club Penguin on a cloud, so they can just scale up and scale down on demand at will. Or high-tech firms like Autodesk or SAP that are doing all their development and testing on cloud so that their users can rapidly build new applications. These are the kinds of use cases where we see clouds being very successful. And in terms of entrepreneurship, I think there's lots of white spaces, particularly when it comes to hybrid clouds, because most customers today want to leverage a mix of on-premise and public cloud infrastructure and really mix and match these two environments in a way that best fits their particular application or needs. And that's where I think there's a lot of opportunity, unexplored territories today.
You kind of took my answer out of my mouth. That's great. But the hybrid cloud is actually the space. If you look for, I think it's explored, but it's actually not a solved problem, is the orchestration in the hybrid cloud model. For me, as someone who's building a SaaS platform and delivering it to customers, my goal is to build everything for the steady state and use the cloud for variable workloads, for test dev, for performance testing, that type of thing. And what I'm looking really for, and what I'd love to see is a platform or ways to have orchestration that lets me expand into a public cloud and back out of a public cloud dynamically, because that gives me really the best of both worlds of running my own data center from a cost savings point of view, but really gives the promise of the cloud, which is the agility side of things. And so that's somewhat of the holy grail and where where we think we want to go ultimately. So that's one space. I think also, the network space hasn't actually fully been solved. I mean, we have a lot around infrastructure provisioning on the VMware side or virtualization side and the storage side, but the SDN side and network side is still coming up to speed. So something that kind of does full stacked orchestration from network all the way up to virtualization is something that's somewhat unexplored, I think.
Completely agreeing with my panelists. I'll just add a different color to that. To your entrepreneurial questions, and you did have too many questions on that one, I think there are two ways to look at it. Orchestration, my co-panelists have talked about orchestration along the stack, but also when we look at enterprise application workloads, there is an opportunity to take some of the key business processes, be it around supply chain, around HR, and also how they follow and orchestrate or do the orchestration piece, which is actually totally untouched as we speak. So there is definitely an opportunity to do that. But now, as we start talking about taking workloads, migrating them to cloud, and do the continuous development, and then having this complete feedback loop, there is also an opportunity to start thinking about security compliance and regulatory compliance kind of things as well. So if we look at the hybrid cloud or multi-cloud context, that is what we as NTT firmly believe in, and we believe that it's going to be all about inter-cloud, which actually has been the theme all along. Everybody's talking about not just public, private, hybrid. It's multiple clouds, interconnected clouds, and the governance around that. I think there's an opportunity across the stack from an orchestration standpoint, as well as looking at some of the key application workloads and start thinking about orchestrating them dynamically and scaling up and out. So I think those are things I'd like to add.
Excellent. So I'll keep this question simple based on the feedback. But, from what I've heard so far, it sounds like orchestration is like a magic bullet. It sounds like it's solving all the problems for everybody and it does everything for everybody. But what are the barriers for adoption by business? Is it lack of stakeholders from the executive side? Is it budgets? Is it technology? Is it security? Is it standards? What's the key objections that are actually stopping mass adoption at this point?
So it's interesting. I was walking around here when I got here, and I went to the big data room, which is a small room with lots of people, so it looks like it's overflowing, right? But there, somebody was saying, data has gravity. It's very hard to move data. Compute needs to move to where data is because data has gravity. Well, it's not just data that has gravity. If you look at enterprises and their adoption of the cloud, every CIO wants to use the cloud. It's not that they don't want to use the cloud, but the applications that they have today have gravity. The applications that they run their business on were written pre-cloud, and they cannot throw those applications away. Everybody says, transform your IT to be a service. The CIO wants to do that, but what do they do with these mission-critical applications? They cannot leave them behind. They can't stop running them, right? So the gravity of the existing applications and infrastructure is that inertia that is holding back cloud adoption. And so, what we're looking at are ways to bridge that. How can you make it simple for the CIO to take their existing applications and use them in a cloud context without having to rewrite them? Because rewriting those applications is a non-starter.
Yeah, so you said something interesting when you started this question. You said, is orchestration a magic bullet? And I think orchestration really is just another word for integration, right? I mean, you have all these different tools. You have automation at the network level, at the system level, at the virtualization level. And what's orchestration? It's really bringing all those tools together and creating integrations between the tools and the stacks. And any time you try to build any integration, it's often the hardest part of any software project you'll ever do, at least in my experience. That's the phase that you need the most QA and the longest time on, because you'll always underestimate it, and it'll be much harder than you think. So I think when you say it's a magic bullet, it's not necessarily a magic bullet, it's just very hard. because you're get together all these different management suites and products and trying to bring them all together. And so that's why I think there's actually a fair amount of white space there. And you asked why there's such high, what are the barriers to entry and why is it slow to be adopted? It's a challenge because you have to do end-to-end number of integrations to support all these different platforms that are doing their specific niche. So I'd recommend to any entrepreneur, if they go down this path, pick a focused use case or pick a focused vertical, because trying to do the many-to-many thing, you'll end up failing. It's just too difficult. So pick something that you know there's a need for, a use case for, or a vertical for, or a market for on that orchestration suite. Start there, and then start to roll on and kind of add those other integrations on, which will really build out your orchestration suite.
Adding another dimension, I would say life used to be much easy with mainframes. All you needed to know was COBOL, then client server, web, and cloud. So from COBOL to C, C++, Java, JavaScript, and for cloud now, maybe a dozen versions of Java. So the tools and technologies actually have evolved on software speed, but everything else is still evolving at human speed. And what that means is, as I start thinking about adoption and creating something new, I have to first worry about, okay, which set of tools and technologies I have to look into, and do I have that available to me? So the whole problem starts with that, and then orchestrating across my variety of workloads. I mean, the existing legacy workloads are not going to go away. Not everything is going to be on cloud. And so in an interconnected multi-cloud scenario, the cloud services orchestration actually takes many different meanings. We, as NTT, are developing our IP and focusing on solving that by looking at it end-to-end, and looking at the continuous automation way or value proposition, which is going to address some of those issues. So again, skills or lack of them, or consistency of tools and technologies, I suspect we will see some sort of consolidation before we all start seeing convergence. So I think those will be the few steps which I believe are barriers to exponential adoption of some of these technologies.
So a small twist to the previous question, which is, generally for any technology or any solution to work, there's people, processes, and technology. So the question is the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart? But the reason I ask this is, do we need business transformation before we can actually adopt cloud orchestration? And I'll explain what I mean. Today, when we run our business, everything is siloed. You have a network manager, you have a virtualization manager, you have a applications manager. So do we need a single point of reference and business transformation before we can actually do cloud orchestration?
Well, I think it's a great point that there is a big cultural change that's happening with the cloud, because the cloud is not only a technology transformation, but as we all know, it's a business transformation as well. But I would say that you don't have to wait for that cultural change for cloud adoption, because already that ship has sailed. Cloud adoption is happening, and without the cultural change having happened yet, but certain important things are happening alongside with it. One is definitely the DevOps movement, right, where that is a cultural change, where it is no longer those siloed departments, right? Though not every company looks like a DevOps team, increasingly that's how companies are organizing themselves. And the other is, consumerization of IT, and just the shadow IT that is existing today is a force that is causing the CIOs to shift dramatically, because those that don't shift are not going to exist anymore.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. At Jive, we're going through a transformation phase we're actually doing application re-architecture as well as re-architecting our internal staff to move from more of the traditional model of horizontal network systems, and even we have a horizontal DevOps team right now, transforming much more to an SRE model where you have specific DevOps engineers that are assigned to products. And so you have a set of QA folks, a set of engineers, a set of ops folks, all incentivized on a single path to ship a single product. And the engineers are incentivized for uptime, and the ops guys are incentivized for feature shipping. So you get this cross-incentivization across the team that really helps focus on the end goal, which is shipping the product. And what that also does is it gets past these barriers of kind of, this is our data center and this is how we do it. The team's focused on shipping the product, and they don't really care about where the data center is. So that actually makes a big push towards, why aren't we using cloud technologies to move faster? And it helps just change the thinking. Now, it takes time to do this, and I think there's actually a model where you build an infrastructure as a service team that actually is fairly common, that includes cloud, and then you kind of create this hybrid cloud, which serves these various SRE teams. But it definitely is a shift, and I think in answer to your question, it actually goes along in parallel. So as we move workloads to these hybrid clouds or to 100% clouds or multi-clouds, your workforce and your organizational structure and the disciplines associated with them are going to move with that.
Absolutely agreeing, but I also believe that if business transformation means that we're moving from service level objectives, service level agreements, operating level agreements to business level agreements, absolutely. In today's context, we talk a lot about SLAs and OLAs. But if we talk about managing the change, the constant change that today's CIO is expected, because his CFO is expecting his finance app experience similar to what he's looking at other apps on his iPhone for his consumer apps. So there's a continuous development or consistent look and feel expectation on the CI to deliver on. Now, that does mean that there is a choice, the turnaround times are different, and the agreements have to look and feel different. Now, that also means once we start thinking in those terms, we are actually start talking more about business agility. I mean, we have been talking about business agility for many years, but now having a model to define and deliver on software-defined data center with SDN and FV abused or not, coming of age, maturing, but also having DevOps being on the mind of every CIO with a continuous process. I think we are moving towards that. Does that mean that also requires cultural change, organizational change? Absolutely. But I think we are on that path, and we will see development or continuous movement towards that journey where we start achieving more of transformation for agility that we have been looking for a long time.
Yeah, so this is more of a futuristic question, but if you look into your crystal ball, or imagine if you're a writer for a science fiction movie, and do you envisage a lights out, hands-free, self-healing data center in the future? What do you think is truly possible with technology and also from a price and cost perspective?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we currently both at, I was previously at Mozilla Firefox, the web browser, and at Jive. We run 100% lights out data centers. We don't have any staff near any of our data centers globally. We had 7 at Mozilla, and I have 5 at Jive Software. We don't co-locate any staff. And we actually do that on purpose, and that really forces a methodology and a mindset of, we're not actually going to be there. Everything has to be done through tickets. The more you can automate, the more you can handle out of band, the more you can handle through various different orchestration suites or management tools, the better. And for example, in our Amsterdam data center, we've sent somebody over there once in the past 2 years. We've done everything else through remote hands, remotely, through documentation. And so I think we can get there. I think we will get there. And I think the cloud, so that's kind of our internal data centers. And if you look at cloud, you're kind of continuing down that path even further. You can't go and tour an Amazon data center or go rack and stack your gear. And in an Amazon data center, it just doesn't happen. So that's almost the evolution of that. And again, I think that, current people who have their own data centers actually have to adopt that mentality as a step towards moving towards the public cloud or any kind of cloud for that matter.
So someone in a previous panel said that we should have a track which talks about cloud, Internet of Things, and analytics. Now, with the current set of technologies, we are actually moving towards a model where pretty soon we'll have a lights out data center or IT environment achievable to deliver IT as a service. Now, we definitely need our analytics and Internet of Things to participate or be part of that ecosystem. If you look at the extended value chain, to start thinking about that. I mean, with the technology is not an issue. It's just leveraging that and creating a roadmap based on where you are and getting towards that and leveraging, building consistency and experiences. Now, cost, you also talked about cost. And so there are two opinions on that. A lot of CIOs think cost will continue to go down. And I don't want to nickel and dime, but we also heard someone else today that yes, that is an issue. The cost goes down, and I want to still continue taking advantage of that. So I think we will see that, but if we look at overall IT as a service, we need to expect the experiences, the ability to automatically deliver on a consistent experience with a single pane of glass. I think those are the kind of things which will happen, and we are moving towards that, and it depends on where you are in your individual journey, and then mapping a roadmap to get there.
So I would like to thank the panelists, and thank you for your time.